Celine.
Thank you. Hi, Austin. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Yeah.
You are such an incredible and extraordinary human being. And on that note, you are human. And I'm just wondering, did you ever find yourself really in the grief and let yourself feel the grief? And if so, really being in that state of that deep, deep darkness of loss. Were there any specific tools you used? I know you mentioned prayer was big and that you had so much support around you, but were there any other tools you used to perhaps help you get through that or get out of the darkest times?
Yeah. Well, I had so many people in my life who were there to support me. And I think being open about it, and talking about it and not just sitting in the grief and letting it just fester inside you. Because at a certain point, it's going to get to a boiling point and it's all going to come out and it's going to be a big thing. But so I think, so for me, I think it's important to keep my family alive, keep their memory alive. And our son Hudson is this is actually crazy. This happened a couple nights ago. Um, my wife and I were, or my wife was putting him to bed, and he said, and he's not even two. He has no idea. But he loves airplanes. He loves like which is really cool. He said, he said, like my wife said, because we talked to him about he's got angels in heaven, right? Talks about like we showing pictures of my family and stuff. Mom, Grandma Julie, Grandpa Steve, Aunt Lindsay, Uncle Ian. Um, but he says the other night he was like my wife was like Hudson, you have lots of angels watching over you in heaven. And he's like, I know. He's like, I know, Mom. I see them. And he waved to him, and my wife's like, well, how, you see them? Like, what are they doing? And he's like, they're flying in an airplane. They're passengers in an airplane, and he has no idea. Like, he doesn't know about like that the significance of air aviation in my life, and um, but it's like that hearing those kinds of things, and it's like, yeah, you get really sad. Like at times, like my dad would have just turned 60 last week on September 30th. He would have turned 60, and I'm thinking about man, what would be, what should be, um, but I've just found it like, and not to say that you suppress the grief because that's not healthy, but I just try to focus on all the great things that I have. I'm like, man, like my life today, if you could have written a story about a guy who gets in two plane crashes, loses his family, almost is killed himself in the second one, 14 years later or 13 years later, um, graduated from Michigan, great experience, met the girl of his dreams, has a son, has a baby girl coming in a month. He's doing what he loves. He's impacting people, inspiring people. He's leaving people better than he found, or at least trying to. And that's not my place to say I am, but trying to lead people better than I found. I'm like, man, you couldn't have written the story any better than how it is today. And so I'm just like, man, yeah, obviously it's terrible what I've lost. Um, but man, I'm so blessed and so grateful. And one thing that I found, and this is something I often say when I speak, again, because I try to keep the Michigan references to a minimum when I speak, because you got people that all different schools all over the country. But I mentioned Angela Duckworth, right? Wharton Business School, smart lady. Also, there's also a guy at MIT who studies airplane crashes and kind of how they happen and why they happen, so that we can hopefully prevent them in the future. And he calculated that the odds of an individual surviving a plane crash with at least one fatality is 1 in 3.4 million. Very slim, right? Maybe that's right, maybe that's not. Ballpark, right? Um, so tragically but fortunately, I survived two plane crashes with multiple fatalities in both. So 1 in 3.4 million times 1 in 3.4 million is 1 in 11 quadrillion, 560 trillion. That's a 17-digit number on the denominator of that fraction. So I shouldn't be here, man. I should not be here. Statistically speaking, I shouldn't be. But I guess by the grace of God, I am. So there must be a purpose for my life. And um, going back to what I was saying about my Michigan education, this thing that I found, MIT guy probably couldn't figure this out. Wharton Business School probably couldn't figure this out either. Um, Obviously, that's sarcastic. but it's impossible to be truly grateful and very negative at the same time. Think about it. Those two emotions can't coexist. They literally can't, right? Like, if, man, I'm so blessed to have all these great things going for me. I'm so blessed to have my wife and our son and our family, my in-laws, and blessed to have this business, do what I love. Like, uh, you can't also be very negative. It's literally impossible to be grateful and negative at the same time. So long-winded answer, back to your question. When those times come, birthdays are a little tough. Dad would be 60, mom would be 59, March 23rd. My sister, she would have turned 33 on September 9th. Little brother will turn 26 on May 6th this year. I mean, it's terrible to think that, but there's still a lot of good in my life, there's a lot of good. So,
Good. Thank you, Austin.
yeah.